to become a so-called transcendentalist, renouncing work and living at the cost of others. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroh Shri Yudapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanshcha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahamara Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sahivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahamana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitanscha. He Krishna Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpatarupayanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Niyatam kuru karma tvam karma tyajayo hyakarmanah. This is a long discussion here about karma. We have there's a perennial question, a question that's often asked by people who are interested in spiritual life in the material world. How can we be responsible, productive citizens, and especially householders, and at the same time be spiritual? Actually, there's no way to do this outside of Bhakti Yoga. It's not possible, because there are really only three paths of transcendentalists. One of them is the yogi, which is only quasi-transcendental, because sometimes the yogis are interested in business, or they're interested in something less than, they want some material siddhis so that they can impress people. They want powers. So, but at best, the yogis are interested in either merging with the absolute, Sayujya Mukti, or in meditation on the super soul, Paramatma, within the heart of all living beings. So that's one option, yoga. Another option is jnana. And actually Krishna has been discussing jnana in the previous chapter. Chapter 2, he's been telling Arjuna all about the soul and all about how one should identify as the soul instead of the body. So Arjuna is confused. In the beginning of chapter 3, he frankly asks Krishna, Jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardhana tat kim karmani koreman niyojiyasi Keshava. Why are you trying to get me to fight this horrible battle in which I have to kill people that I respect and love? If in fact you say that buddhi or intelligence is better than work. So Krishna has already been through this. Arjuna, he says, I'm bewildered because you seem to be saying two things at once. You're telling me that the soul is higher than the body and I can't kill anyone and I should always remember that I'm the spirit soul and not the body. But at the same time, you're telling me to stand and fight. So my intelligence is bewildered. Tell me for sure what is the real path of progress for me. So Krishna answers him, Lokesmin vividhanishta pura prokta mayanaka jnana yogina sankhyanam karma yogina yoginam. Those who are inclined for activity, he says, they should do karma yoga, and those who are inclined for intellectual cultivation, they should do jnana yoga. There are two kinds of faith. Not that there are two kinds of faith, there's actually only one faith, faith in the absolute truth. But it's directed in these two ways. This is the idea. And Krishna has, in fact, he did say this earlier on. So he goes on to say in text 4, now Acharyas commenting on this passage say that for the next 13 or 14 verses, that takes us where? All the way up until text 17, I think it is. Yeah. Then Krishna gives him his answer about karma yoga. He says, you cannot achieve freedom from reaction just by stopping work. Right? Nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. About maybe 30 years ago, residents of Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh, remember waking up to something funny in the air and then dying a few minutes later because they couldn't breathe. And to this very day, people in that city, there's a lot of people were born deformed from parents who went through that. There's so much residue is still there because somebody gave up work. Somebody had a responsibility to perform and did not perform it. So some people do argue, people who don't really understand the fact, they think that just by stopping work, I will stop reaction. But it doesn't work like that. If you do not do your, what is called here in this verse, niyatam karma. Niyatam karma is a very interesting concept. We'll explain it in a moment, but the idea is that if you don't do what is enjoined upon you to do, then you get a sinful reaction for that. Even if you apparently are sitting and doing nothing. So this is why Krishna says one should be able to see action in inaction, and inaction in action. Because if we do the right thing for the right purpose, then there's no reaction. That is to say, if we do what is enjoined upon us to do, but we don't try to enjoy the results ourselves, instead we offer them to Bhagavan, then there's actually no karmic reaction for that, and neither is there any sinful reaction because we've done our duty. This goes all the way back to the Veda Samhitas, the 4 Vedas, the core scriptures of Hinduism, core Vedic scriptures. For those who don't know, all of the teachings of Krishna consciousness, all the teachings of Hinduism for that matter, are based on 4 Vedas, Rig Veda, Sama Veda, Yajur Veda, Atharva Veda. Those Vedas have been summarized in various schools of interpretation. There are 6 different ways to interpret the Vedas, one of which is called Vedanta. In the Vedanta school, Vyasadeva has compiled Vedanta Sutra, which codifies the very gist of the philosophical portions of those Vedas called the Upanishads. And Srimad Bhagavatam is Vyasadeva's own commentary on this Vedanta Sutra. It represents the crème de la crème of the Vedic teachings. Bhagavad Gita is just a small sampling of those teachings, spoken on a battlefield. You can imagine they couldn't really split hairs in that context. Maybe half an hour elapsed before the battle had to be fought, but Krishna's purpose was to get Arjuna to fight. Only because Krishna wanted that to happen. And why did Krishna want that to happen? Because it was Arjuna's dharma. Dharma and karma actually mean the same thing. If any karma in the most general sense means activity, but there are different kinds of activity. You can use a vegetable knife to cut up banyan for the Sunday feast in the temple. And you can also use the same knife, you can turn and push it into the person next to you. But it's very, very different. Very, very different, you see. So doing anything that is not enjoined upon us to do, that is called adharma. Or it's not akarma, it's called vikarma. Vigata karma, going the wrong way. Vigata. So there are 3 things Krishna mentions elsewhere in this chapter, in fact. He says, there's karma, which is ordinary dharma, as we've described. There's vikarma, that is papa, sinful activity, adharma, doing the wrong thing and getting reactions for that and suffering those reactions. And then there's akarma, which is a transcendental perspective because akarma we've already described. It means to do your dharma but to offer the results to Krishna such that you don't get any kind of reaction. You get only development of the heart. You get spiritual advancement through that. And through that spiritual advancement, which is the culmination of knowledge, in fact, we can become free forever from all kinds of suffering. We don't have to come back to this material world. Why would we not want to come back to this material world? Because we have to suffer, no matter where we are in this material world. At least 4 things. Birth is not easy. Death is not easy. It's so bad you die. And old age is no picnic also. And disease is also there's a lot of suffering. If you don't believe any doctors here, you can raise your hand. So, maybe no. Seems like there's no doctors, or they're too shy. But hang around the hospital and just watch. You can see. The people in various stages of psychophysical disintegration, especially, people who are really seriously ill. It's very, it's not easy, this material. And any birth in this world involves these 4 sufferings. In case you can handle that, then there's on top of that, there's 3 more. That's miseries that are caused by your own baggage. Usually it's up here, especially in America. But now in modern cities worldwide as well, it's been exported. Colonialism is no longer through the nation-state paradigm. Arjun Abhadurai says, he's a sociologist at the University of Chicago. And he said this 20 years ago, mind you. It's transacted now through the transnational corporate class. But anyway, the import-export is going on. And these ideals of sense gratification have been exported worldwide, and everybody's suffering as a result, because it's papa. That's why you cannot consider that less than 5% of the world's population is going to consume more than half of the world's resources and not get some reaction for it. Either in the form of half the world currently trying to kill us, or something else. So, anyway, this is the realm of karma, or rather the realm of vikarma. And mind you, there's no such thing as vikarma yoga. So, if you're trying to purify yourself somehow, we hope that this is our ideal. It has to be according to the Shastra Vidhis. When Krishna later on describes what it means to be demoniac or divine, and mostly he dilates on what it means to be demoniac, this is in chapter 16. How does he conclude that chapter? Does anyone know? Some verses? I'll give it to you. For one example, he says, Yash shastra vidham utsrujya vartate kama karataha nasa siddhim avapnoti na sukham na phalam gati. The person who, he says, gives up whatever the Shastra enjoins for him to do or for her to do, just out of whims, out of a desire to do something else instead, irresponsibly, basically, that person neither gets happiness nor the supreme destination. What is it? Neither he gets peace, nor happiness, nor the supreme destination. So, this is why Krishna is pushing first, when Arjuna is not really sure what he's saying about the soul and what does it mean practically? This is Arjuna's question. Well, how do I apply this at ground level? Now Krishna is saying, okay, very simple. The Shastra enjoins you to do something. That's called niyatam karma. And you have to do that. Now, the problem is this. Every one of us has a different niyatam karma. And for every one of us it's different. For Arjuna, because he was a married man, and he was also a military man, his niyatam karma was to fight. Therefore, that's what Krishna was asking him to do. Because he was the right person to do that thing. In the expanded version of Bhagavad Gita that we find in the 11th canto, it's called Uddhava Gita. Krishna says a lot of the same things that he taught Arjuna. He teaches to Uddhava in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And there's a very nice verse. He says, Sway sway karmani, what is it? Sway sway dhikare ya nishtha sa guna parikirtata. A qualification or a virtue means that everyone is engaged exactly in that thing that the person is qualified to do. Perfect fit. You're not trying for too much. You're not shooting too high than you're capable of attaining. Neither will you settle for less than you're capable of attaining. You have to get it right on the money, as we say. So this was Arjuna's position. He was to be a fighter. And Krishna warned him, if you try to artificially do something else, you will find yourself engaged in fighting. Because that's your nature, you see. So this brings us back to this old conception back in the four Vedas called Vrita. Vrita means there is a universal order that is organizing the cosmic manifestation. And the enjoined duties or karmas or dharmas that we all have, individual dharmas as well as collective dharmas, these things are all part of a grand universal order. If someone pulls out of his or her niyatam karma and stops performing that, it has universal ramifications. It's not just, it's like, well, if anyone has ever worked, say, as a social worker, or anyone has ever dealt with, say, alcoholics. Now, in North America, in the South Asian community, for many years, alcoholism has been a very serious problem. Did you know this? It is. And anyone who's been exposed to this knows that an alcoholic, it's not just I do what I want and I don't bother anyone else and nothing happens. It's just, it's my business. Leave me alone. It doesn't work like that. Because we have no reactions. There's legal reactions, medical reactions, all kinds of reactions happen. That's just the immediate reaction. What to speak of the next life? How we have to pay for everything that we do. So we have to perform this swadharma. And there's a system that, I want to say, pulls everyone's swadharma all together. That's called varnashram dharma. In fact, Srila Prabhupada, the founder and Acharya of ISKCON, he gave many instructions. As a matter of fact, for the statisticians among the audience, he gave about 80% of his instructions on this topic in the last 3 years that he was with us, because he felt very strongly that this is what we would need. What would we need it for? Well, we would need it to fulfill his final instruction. And his final instruction was to cooperatively sustain. He didn't say to expand ISKCON. He said to maintain it. Now, for that, we want to go back to the root, the verbal dhatu, the verbal root of the word dharma. Anybody know what it is? You can find this information in Prabhupada's books. Dhri. Dhri dhatu. Dhri means to sustain. We're all looking in the modern age, or at least we say we're looking, for sustainable technology, sustainable economy, sustainable agriculture. Sustenance means dharma. If it is not dharma, it will not sustain. This is the point. So if we want to sustain even an institution, what to speak of a world, then we have to have a system that coordinates all the real natures that people have, not the ideals that we have. But everybody has a place. There's another nice verse from the 11th canto, very similar to the one I just quoted. That is, Krishna tells Uddhava there again, that each and every person has his own nature. Parasvabhava karmani na prashamse na karvayet. You should neither praise another person's conditional nature, neither should you criticize that person's conditional nature. We're not talking about a person's spiritual nature. We're talking about a person's temporary material conditioning. The kind of personality that a person is, the kind of body that a person has, the kind of inclinations or even desires that a person may have, and certainly the kinds of duties that are enjoined for that person. You see? If you praise that person too much, or if you praise that nature too much, the person becomes over-encouraged in the world of Maya, and they aren't broken. Instead, try to understand that there is a grand system here. This is the significance of the word ritu. And this is an ancient term that later dropped out of usage in Sanskrit and became more or less replaced with the word dharma. But the idea should be there, that there's cosmic significance to everyone's prescribed duties. And that's also enjoined in the word niyatam. It's also indicated by the word niyatam, which at one and the same time means a duty that's enjoined by Shastra and also a duty that's natural. Ramanujacharya comments on this. He says, niyatam vyaktam prakriti srishtena hi vyaktam karma yatascha prakriti samsatasya karma yoga sashakoa pramadascha. Very good point he makes here. Because this niyatam karma, or this individual swadharma that each of us has, it's tied up with the material nature itself. In the ways that I've just elaborated on. It's not really separable from the material creation itself. Therefore, if you are engaged in the proper duty according to what the Shastra enjoins, you cannot go wrong. And it will also be very easy for you to perform. You see? It may be that you desire something else. That's another matter. But we can perform our own swadharma. So therefore, Krishna tells Arjuna later on here in Bhagavad Gita, what does it say? Karmani abhirataha samsiddhim labate param. A person can get complete perfection just by doing his or her own duty. So this is varnashram dharma. Now, varnashram dharma is not the end of the story, because we should actually come to a higher platform. And here in this chapter in particular, the Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas such as Baladev Vidyabhushan and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, they've commented on this passage. Especially Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has commented that there's actually a double entendre going on here. The conversation is going on between Krishna and Arjuna on two levels. On one level, Arjuna is acting like a bewildered person and asking questions and telling Krishna, tell me what to do practically. Just like when the husbands and wives fight, the husbands tend to think in terms of what I'm supposed to do, right? And then because they're men, and women think in more subtle terms. So anyway, Arjuna is asking Krishna, what am I supposed to do? And Krishna says, you do your duty. For this is not reason. But on a deeper level, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, it's a play conversation, because both of them are acting. Neither one of them is a conditioned soul. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, acting as if he's the charioteer of Arjuna. Arjuna is one of Krishna's eternal associates, ever liberated, Nityasiddha devotee, but he's acting as if he's bewildered. So it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek conversation going on here. And Vishwanath Chakravarti has interpreted all these instructions not only in terms of niyatam karma and varnashram dharma, but even in terms of prema bhakti, which is on a much higher level. Now, the conversation is going to proceed through many chapters. We don't have time to cover everything, but as most of you know, that by the end of chapter 18, it's very clear. Arjuna is awakened. Nashto mohanashto, right? He says, my illusion is now bewildered, I'm going to act as you say. And Krishna has raised it, that when he says, Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja, come to my shelter and forget about all these so-called dharmas. He's not actually telling him to give up the dharmas, but he's raising him to a higher platform in which he's out of the karmic paradigm. He's still performing. The whole purpose of Bhagavad Gita is to get Arjuna to fight, and indeed he fights. He never gives that up. This is the thing to take note of. But his consciousness is elevated far above that, because he's no longer fighting to win a battle, and he's no longer calculating what's in it for my side, for their side. You know, we're going to win so much kingdom, we're going to get so much infamy if I don't fight. These were all his calculations in the beginning. He's beyond that now. He's thinking only in terms of, I'm a pure spirit soul, I'm eternal part and parcel of Sri Krishna, he's my Lord and Master, I'm meant to serve him in pure devotion. Whatever he wants, I'm going to do this. This is pure bhakti. So actually Bhagavad Gita is meant to bring us to that point, because above varnashram is what we call parodharma. I mentioned already, each and every one of us sitting in this room has a swadharma. a duty that's enjoined upon us by Shastra. Do you know what it is? Have you asked? Then what's going to happen? Given everything that we've discussed. We have to know these things. You see? Just as you can't just turn on the keys and drive out of your driveway and not know, at least in America. I live in India, it's another matter. But you can't just go driving somewhere and not know what the law is. In India, we drive on the other side of the street. Here we drive on this side of the street, you see. But these things are very consequential. You may end up in jail, you see. Or worse, in an accident. So, of the two things that Ramanujacharya has said about this verse, two things being what? Karma yoga is the best path for two reasons, he says. One, it is sashakatva. It has this ease of performance. It's very easy to do. Why? Why is it easy to do? Niyamatva, or niyatatva, it is prakriti samsrishta. It is created along with the creation. It is part of the creation, in fact. It's not, therefore, unnatural. This is the point. If we find that it's unnatural, then that means we've not understood our swadharma as is enjoined by the Shastra. That's one thing. And then the second thing is even more interesting. He says it's very valuable. Why? Because asambhavita pramada. It has asambhavita pramadata. That means there's no possibility of going wrong on this path. If you plug into the Vedic path of dharma, varnashram dharma in particular, we're talking about, then there's no possibility of falling. Why is he saying this? Because Arjuna is thinking now in terms of pure gyan. When I was in college, one of my professors told us that there is actually no such thing as pure ideology in this world. Think about it. You cannot apply pure ideology, because pure ideology is by definition hypothetical. That is the problem with gyan. You can get so many realizations, but what are you going to do at the end of the day? You see? So Arjuna he's confused about this, and therefore Krishna is strongly encouraging niyatam kura karma tvam, karma jyayo vyakarmanaha, sharira yatrapi chatena prasiddheda karmanaha. Now he gets in on two levels. The first thing is very obvious. No work, no food. Simple. Anybody on the platform of Annamaya realization can understand that. It's very interesting. I've thought a lot about this. Why do Srila Prabhupada's instructions on Varnashram Dharma almost invariably center on its socio-economic aspects? Not even socio-economic, I would say more like agrarian and economic aspects. Why is that? Because we're all gross materialists. We're all thinking only in terms of the paycheck. That's why we do the jobs that we do, is it not? That's why we come to America, is it not? I could say something about that, but I won't. Something that Prabhupada said. But the idea is that we're on the Annamaya platform. We're thinking in terms of food is everything. And for those who are out of ignorance a little bit and a little bit elevated into the mode of passion, they think in terms of pranamaya. What does pranamaya mean? Healthy, what is it? Healthy life, basically. Everything is going nicely. And healthy, productive life. That's the best we can get in modern civilization, because that's where it goes. It doesn't really go much higher than that. You're practically not allowed to go any higher than that. But there are three more koshas, or coverings, the Taittiriya Upanishad tells us. There's also Jnanamaya, the intellectual life, and very few people are in that. We call them nerds. They're not, actually the Shastra describes, the sinful activities that accrue to someone who kills a Brahmin, right? But in this day and age, we call them nerds. And instead we persecute those who harass or bother other people, even though they may not be morally very sound. That's another matter. But that's Jnanamaya, and then Vijnanamaya means that we actually have some realization. We've understood, Brahmabhuta Prasannatma, I'm not this body. Actually, that is the platform on which real bhakti begins. until we get to the platform of Vijnanamaya realization, Brahmaputra realization, we're not really even practicing Param Bhakti, what he calls Param Bhakti in chapter 18. We're practicing what I call probate Bhakti. Bhakti with training wheels, something like that. We have a sponsor for our soul, and by his divine grace, we're able to do something and he's offering it to Krishna. But where's our own relationship with Krishna? We don't know. See? So the awakening of that relationship is called Anandamaya. Anandamaya. Brahmaputra Jnana. So actually this Dharma is very important, and that's why Krishna spends at least 5-6 chapters in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, according to Baladev Datta, discussing this topic. Why? Because the substrate of Gyan is Dharma. If you have engaged in Karma Yoga, you will gain Gyan automatically. By default, you will be raised to the platform of Sattva Guna, and Sattva Sanjayate Jnana. This is in the 11th canto. From Sattva Guna, knowledge arises. Before you're in, as long as we are in Tamoguna and Rajoguna, mainly, there's no question of knowledge. What happens? Even when we hear from a pure devotee, even from Srila Prabhupada, we twist and twangle it and turn it into something else that we could use for our passionate and ignorant purposes. You see, everything is corrupted. So, Sattva Sanjayate Jnana. That's what Ramanujacharya means when he says, Apramadascha. It cannot, Asambhavita Apramadascha. It is not possible to be bewildered or to fall, or to go astray, as long as you are following this path. And that's why Krishna says again, back to chapter 16, what is the first? Tasmat chastram pramanante karya vyavastita. You should understand what is to be done and what is not to be done on the basis of what the Shastra enjoins. Simple thing. Anybody can understand it if they hear from a proper source. So these are a few things we can think about this. There's much more. We haven't really even brought this to the ultimate level of pure devotional service yet. I was going to say, Savai Pungsam Paro Dharmo Yato Bhakti Ratokshije. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, this definition is given of what the Bhagavatam calls Parodharma. Parodharma is like Param Bhakti. It's the same thing. It means that dharma that we all actually share. I mentioned two, 3 times so far. Every one of us has different dharmas to perform in this temporal incarceration, the mind-body complex that we're currently inhabiting. That's why we all have conflicts, because we're all different. Equality is a dream. It doesn't exist in this world. Just get used to it. You can't change it. But we do have something in common, spiritually. And that is that all of us are parts and parcels of the Supreme Father, the Supreme Lord Krishna. All of us have the great privilege and joy to render service to Krishna, and in this life to reestablish our dormant, eternal but now dormant, loving relationship with Him. And we do that by chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This simple process, carried out properly according to the great science that Bhakti Yoga is, that is called Parodharma. And that's the complete perfection of life. That is the complete perfection. So Varnashram is actually meant to bring us to the stage. Dharma is meant to bring us to the stage. Karma, I mean to say, is meant to bring us to the stage of knowledge. Knowledge is the basis upon which we can perform Bhakti Yoga. But while we have this opportunity in the human form of life, we have got to reawaken this relationship with the Supreme Lord, loving relationship. And it can be carried out in one of any number of ways. As a servant, as a friend, as a parent even, as a lover even. These are what we call rasas of bhakti, bhakti rasa. So it's a great science. Rupa Goswami has written a book about it called Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It's like an ocean of nectarian rasas of bhakti. And he says the devotees, we're all like little fish swimming in that ocean. Different kinds of fish. All different kinds. Relishing all different tastes. This is the perfection. This perfection is eternal. But we get there by, somebody I read this morning, he said, when you're climbing stairs, then you don't look at the top stair, you look at the step in front of you. In exactly the same way, Baladevi in his commentary on this verse says, what does he say? Kramasopana nyayena. This instruction is being given by Krishna according to the logic that you have to take one step at a time. If we need to get to the 10th floor, then there's no way you're going to do that without somehow negotiating the first 9 floors. You can go through the stairs, you can take the elevator. If you're adventurous, you can take your mountain climbing gear and climb up the side and go through a window. Somehow or other, barring a helicopter, you're going to have to go through those first 9 floors. So in the same way, even when we're performing devotional service, we go through karma, we become dharmic. Through dharma, we develop gyan, Brahmaputra gyan, and then our devotional service matures. And then we're practicing real bhakti on the liberated platform, just as it should be. When we do that, then everything takes off very quickly, and we get love of Godhead. It's possible in one life, but we have to push. Not push, I should say we have to fight. Because this is Arjuna, and he's being instructed to fight. So we also have to fight with our lower nature. Okay, is there anything else? I don't know, but I think time's up now. So I'll just ask for maybe 1 or 2 questions. Is that okay? Anybody have any? Yes.
I'd ask a question. The corporate world is forced to do all the things. The majority of the world is studying the corporate world. But how do we come out of
Okay, so his question is that in the corporate world we're forced to perform so many vikarmas, I think you mean, right? So how do we perform our duty in that world and come out without sinful reactions? Well, this is a good question. Let me give you 2 answers for it, and you can take your choice. How's that? The best answer is the one that Srila Prabhupada suggested, which is that you should check out of the system. Socioeconomic system, I need to say. You should live in a sustainable, natural way without having to patronize the people who are ruining the world now. Because that's what we're doing. I used to work also, I know. When I was in Seattle, I was in the University of Washington, and they have good public transportation there. And my conscience was bothering me because I was driving around. So I thought, I don't need to drive around like this. And I'm paying to these people who are trying to bomb us all the time, right? So, and I'm polluting the environment while I'm at it. And who's gonna foot that bill? We live in a society that is very artificial and very tenuous. Shankaracharya says. It's like a drop of water on a lotus leaf. You look at just read the news. You can see that something's got to give here. You see, it can't work. So the best thing is that you work on the alternative and you devote yourself to that full time. But not everybody can do that, it's recognized. So you take, Krishna, he gives us many, many options in chapter 12. Chapter 12, bookmark this, of Bhagavad Gita. He says the best thing to do is to focus on me with your full attention. If you can't do that, then work for me. If you can't do that, then at least work for something other than yourself. You see? And he gives 5, 6 different options, you see. And elsewhere in the Bhagavatam, Krishna also says, Pranayar arthayar dhya vacha. There are 4 things you can do. The best thing is to give your prana, your life. If you can't do that, you give your artha, your assets. If you can't do that, at least you say something nice, or have nice thoughts at least. You see, this is also a function of karma yoga, a function of karma yoga. Okay, but you have to do this only under the sponsorship of a person who is a self-realized, pure devotee, bona fide spiritual master. Otherwise, it's risky. What I'm getting at is that recognize that you're in a very, very liable position. That's uncomfortable news, isn't it? Jayadvaita Swami, he said something very nice. He said, preaching means to comfort the distressed and to distress the comfortable. Anything else? Prabhuji.
I just wanted a little bit more to elaborate. You stated that Jnana platform, or the Brahma Buddha Varshanatha platform, is the stage at the beginning of devotional service.
That's actually Vijnana, I said. But I get your point. Okay. Anything else? Yeah. Yes. Namanse ashram, varna ashram, and then there are other kinds. Sadharana dharma means there's something that everybody has to do, even on the mundane platform. Like I mentioned for the third time, you don't stab the guy next to you. That's just ordinary civility. That's called sadharana dharma. Apadharma means in an emergency. Sometimes the rules are suspended for some time. There's all sorts of dharmas, but we have to know these things because we're humans. Dharmasya hina kashapi samana. Without knowing these things, you're just an animal. It's very strong. That's a very interesting question in Vrindavan by a South Indian devotee. He said, that's like asking for a separate law that regards the criminals. I'm a criminal, so what set of laws apply to me? There's law and there's non-law. That's the point. There's dharma and there's adharma. You see? Now, the reason I said that there may be another answer to this is because I've seen that in some Puranas there's a dharma of demons, for example, and the demons have their own dharma that they follow. But I don't think anyone in this room is explicitly trying to advocate that we're demons or should be. I think we're all trying to become some sort of Vaishnavas here. You see, so that's not really applicable. So we won't even go there. Is that satisfactory or is it disturbing?
I'm just interested to know what scope is there for that. What is the correctional disease for?
Here's the hope. You take one step towards Krishna and he takes 10 steps towards you. Bus. And no matter what your shortcomings, it doesn't really matter. The Acharyas commenting on these opening chapters of Bhagavad Gita, they have very clearly said that we're not talking about a person who is, as we say, apichet suraracharo bhajade mamanandibha. A person who's, by his habit or by conditioning, he just may, inadvertently do something wrong. Even from time to time they do that. It takes time, you see? That person is still covered if there's sincerity in his heart to achieve that goal. Let me read you a very nice excerpt from this chapter, and then I'll end because I know it's getting late. I'm reading chapter 3 again. Text is number 31. Krishna says, those persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions and follow this teaching faithfully, without envy, become free from the bondage of fruitive actions. Okay? That's very clear. Now what Srila Prabhupada says in the purport is even more clear and very interesting. He says, he's talking about rascals who misinterpret Bhagavad Gita because they lack faith. He says they'll never be liberated. But an ordinary man with firm faith in the eternal injunctions of the Lord, even though unable to execute such orders, becomes liberated from the bondage of the law of karma. In the beginning of Krishna consciousness, one may not fully discharge the injunctions of the Lord, but because one is not resentful of this principle and works sincerely without consideration of defeat and hopelessness, because those things are tamasic, aren't they? Depression is tamasic, you see? That person will surely be promoted to the stage of pure Krishna consciousness. Jai Ho!
Jai Ho!
All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
They're celebrating the 5 months of this young man. You can see. His name is Jyotirmoy Das. My parents are seeking the blessings and the prayers of all the Vaishnavas. If you can all please raise both our hands. We're going to pray to the Lord Shri Shri Gaura Nitai, Jagannath Baladev Shubhadra Devi, and Shri Shri Radha. Together. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So now I'd like to request Kanda Swami and family to please come up. And they're celebrating her son, Badrinath. He turns 1. So, the son, Badrinath Prabhu, we're going to sing happy birthday to him. You remember his name, Badrinath? Okay. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Badrinath. Happy birthday to you. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, cake that was offered to the merchant. Harimo! 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 So let's offer our prayers to their lordships for Badrinath Prabhu, that may he become a very important member of Srila Prabhupada's family. Okay, together? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Now I would like to request Maithili to please come up. Can you all see Maithili? So remembers when she was born. Anyway, she's a new Manihati town girl. So we're very happy to celebrate her 11th birthday here at New Manihati town. So we're going to sing happy birthday to Maithili. Maithili. I think it's the name of Sita Devi. Okay, so let's sing happy birthday to Maithili. Together.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Maithili. Happy birthday to you. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Later. So she wants all your prayers for later on in life. She's doing okay right now. So everyone could please raise both your hands to pray for Maithili, that she can become a great devotee later and also now. Together. Hare